What is up, y'all? Welcome back to episode 8 of That's No Moon Pod. In this episode, I really wanted to dive deep into the infamous, the one, the only Roswell, New Mexico UFO crash that took place in July 1947. Fun fact about me, I was actually born in Roswell, New Mexico, and I grew up there till I was about 10 years old. So I kind of got a first person view on things, on how life is kind of around the city and how people, just kind of accept it for what it was. The town's a small town that relies on the crash site for its, people coming into the town, checking out all the museums and just all the tourist attraction that this one event caused, and still has such an impact on the alien UFO UAP community to this day. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of give my thoughts on the whole situation and how I think things played out and what actually went down and all that kind of stuff. By the way, I just watched the new Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania trailer that just dropped. That movie looks crazy. But that's just a side note. But yeah. So Roswell feels like one of those things that takes place not so often in our world, and no one can really fully explain exactly what happened because the details are just so muddied throughout time. And I guess I'll just start with the event itself. In July 1947, as a lot of you may know, the middle of the night, there was a storm in a small town near Roswell, New Mexico, and on this rancher's land, supposedly a flying saucer crashes on this ranch, and there's multiple witnesses who arrive on the scene, and they kind of give the whole story to the newspaper, and the story gets out the next day pretty quick. There's a lot of debris scattered across this ranch, and the story goes mainstream, and the Roswell Daily Record puts out its headline saying flying saucer crashes in ranch near Roswell, New Mexico. And shortly after this, they backtrack and pretty much redact what was just said previously and change the whole story completely into saying that no, it was just a weather balloon experiment, some kind of military weather balloon that crashed instead. And that's pretty much how the story goes, and from there on, you start to dive deep into the speculations of what actually happened. And from my knowledge, I know that the Roswell Army Air Force got down there. They went to the crash site, picked up all the debris that was scattered around, and analyzed it. And if you know the famous Jesse Marcel, the man holding the weather balloon debris in that famous picture, he supposedly got down there, took some of the debris for himself, and actually took it home that night and showed his wife and his kid. Kind of laid it down on the floor in their house and kind of let them all, kind of examine it. They said they try to bend some of the metal beams that were recovered from it, and there was supposedly some type of hieroglyphic letterings on some of these metal objects that were taken, and so he shows his family all this debris, and the next day, I guess, he is ordered to return all the debris that he had took, and after that, that's pretty much when the story flips on its head, and they start rolling with this weather balloon story instead of the flying saucer. And right there and then, you can kind of just tell something is going on that they don't want us to exactly know. Keep in mind, they're fresh off World War II. The military is pretty much, top of the line. Whatever the military says goes at this point in time. And not that far from Roswell, in White Sands, New Mexico, that's where they were doing a lot of the atomic bomb testing. So, this area and this part of the country at the time was a real hot spot for military involvement and top secret matters that go on within the military. And it continued on for many years after that. And I guess when I think of Roswell and what I think actually happened, not just the Jesse Marcel story, and just in those photos of him, if you look him up, holding up the kind of looks like tinfoil weather balloon debris in those photos, he just doesn't look like what he's holding is what he actually saw for himself. He kind of looks like he's being told to do this, like he's being told to hold up this random debris that was never there in the first place, and to kind of pose for the picture and play ball and be a team player so they could swap out the stories from flying saucer to weather balloon. And it really sucks because, a lot of these people that were witnesses to the crash, their integrity and their knowledge on, their military knowledge and all that was really kind of just put into question, because you're saying that these high-end military personnel can't tell the difference between a extraterrestrial vehicle, flying saucer, from a weather balloon. That's pretty much what you're trying to tell the world, saying that our military just can't tell the difference. It was a mistake. What they saw wasn't a flying saucer at all. And so that story runs, and it kind of hushes everybody up for what they wanted it to do. The story kind of goes a little silent afterwards, and supposedly they took all the debris that they scattered up, took it to the base in Roswell, and not only the debris, but supposedly there were bodies that were recovered also at the crash site. And supposedly they were also shipped over to the Air Force Base, and not to just one, but to multiple Air Force bases, and stored and examined. And who knows what else was done after that. And yeah, that's pretty much how the story goes. But if you ask me, I definitely don't think for sure it was not a weather balloon. I think that these people, this military, could tell the difference between a flying saucer and a weather balloon. I think that not only did a flying saucer crash in Roswell, I think the story of the bodies being there and all the crazy metal-like fragments that were recovered that you couldn't bend, you couldn't break, you couldn't pierce with anything. It just kind of folded on back to itself like nothing. The story of the hieroglyphic type lettering on the metals, I believe all of it. And when you really dig deep into the story and kind of hear from all these different witnesses who were there, there's a lot of stories of there were religious I guess pastors who performed some type of prayers for the bodies, the victims that were there. There's stories of when they shipped the bodies to the base that the nurses who actually witnessed and saw the bodies and were placed in small type 3 to 4 foot boxes that look like little caskets. You hear of multiple military personnel who say and claim that they witnessed all these things. So it's not just this one military person, Jesse Marcel. It's multiple. And the story kind of grew and kind of gained more traction throughout the years, especially in the 90s. They really started to investigate more into it. I believe a general had came out who was there, um, and he pretty much came clean before he died when he was 90 years old, saying that, yeah, it was a cover up. The weather balloon story was just a cover up. Um, and yeah, I mean, if you think back on it, like I said, during that time, they were fresh off of World War II. Um, if a flying saucer crashes and we recover it and we stick with that story and it's 100% true, then that means the whole world knows that. And that means our biggest enemies at the time would realize that we just recovered an extraterrestrial vehicle and now have possibly its technology within our hands, and may start to work on future projects to try to implement those into our own military um, weaponry. And um, if we were to let that out and to let our enemies at the time know that we have these type of things, it could lead to conflict within our enemies and could put us in danger at the time. So I think that's part of the main reason why, they switch so fast from flying saucer to weather balloon. And like I said, back in those days, the military were, head honcho. Um, they had pretty much, they had last word on those types of things, and the people were just willing to accept it, and they sure did. But yeah, they always try to debunk the whole story, not just with the weather balloons, but they try to say, the bodies were test dummies that the military were trying out during the time. But when actually during the 1947 crash, the military wasn't using these types of dummies for these types of exercises. So the timing on some of these things that they say were actually not possible at the time at all. And if you look after Roswell, the CIA gets formed. A lot of military advancements start to take place with a lot of our aircraft. They start to build some new stealth technology for our aircraft. Just a lot of equipment. Kevlar comes out right after for our military personnel to wear. Obviously, you got different agencies being formed. Project Blue Book or Project Grudge. All these things start to form right after Roswell, and everything just starts to kind of snowball into effect, and really puts a spotlight on the events that actually took place. And I know some people will say, well, they don't like to give credit to possibly there being a crashed UFO and us taking that technology and implementing it to our own military and just our own new technology, because that may take away some of the human integrity of our ingenuity of creating and advancing new things ourselves. But I kind of look at it as, everything that's built ever always has an inspiration from something. And I mean, if look, if you have a cheat code and you have a way of doing it that you had no idea was even possible of doing it before, then you roll with it. You just accept, this is fate, and, we're going to use it to our advantage. Let go of our own human egos and just, accept it for what it was, a miracle. And recently, if you look at, there's some photos like the one of Jesse Marcel holding that debris in those photos. There's also some generals, and they're all kind of holding the debris as well. And there's one in particular of where one of them is holding a piece of paper to which looks like a memo. And that image has been out since the event took place. But recently, throughout the years, the video technology has gotten better as well for us. And we were able to analyze that photo, and they took that picture of them holding the debris and holding that memo in his hands, and they were able to point out certain words within that memo to what it actually says. And some of the words that come through are victims and saucer, and they're literally right there holding debris of the weather balloon for the cover up, but right there in their hands is the proof. And that just says so much of what they're telling us, but what they're not actually telling us. And that's just kind of always how it's been ever since. I don't know. I think if you ask someone if they think a UFO crashed in Roswell or not, I think you kind of get a lot of mixed opinions still. That story is just so crazy to even think about. Because it's like, why would they crash, right? If they're so advanced, their technology, their spacecraft is so advanced compared to ours, how's that even possible that they would crash, right? But I try not to look at it like that. I try to look at it as, well, let's not try to say that, okay, they're aliens from another planet flying through our solar systems, and they happen to be flying through Roswell, New Mexico, and, made a mistake or got struck by lightning and, went down on a ranch somewhere. I like to think maybe that they had always kind of been around the area, like I said, with the whole White Sands atomic bomb testing in New Mexico going around during that time. There was a lot of reason for, if anyone were to take notice, especially them, I feel like they would, and they would want to kind of keep their eyes on certain things that were going on within our species. And who knows, maybe it was something that we knew about already, and it was just a kind of a military test that night that went wrong. We were testing out some new type of technology with something that we had found or discovered at another point in time, and we were the ones that screwed up that night and didn't calculate for the weather, some other type of thing to go wrong, and the saucer goes down, you know? It doesn't mean it has to be a little alien being from another planet somewhere. It could just be something from right here, from right in our backyard, and, we're not going to know about it. I like to think that may also be more of a possibility as well. But that doesn't take away from the fact that what crashed there was extraterrestrial, and it was something that humanity has never seen before, at least to the public eye. And everything from that night, even to this day, is still being kept from us, still being a secret. But I think slowly and surely, we'll slowly start to get a little bit more closure on things, maybe get a little bit more of an understanding on what possibilities there are with technologies that we could, only dream of, or, watching Star Wars or Star Trek or any of these video games that we play. But the truth is out there. It's always been out there. It's just a matter of time before, we get the full page of it all, and it's all kind of laid out right in front of us, and let the people decide for themselves on how to react if, everyone starts to freak out, or, try to at least accept that, well, maybe this phenomena not only is just, fairy tales and just stories being told from generations, but actually has some credibility to it. But obviously there's always going to be the safety implications from our enemies today, even. If we've recovered some of this technology and implemented it into our military, we don't want other people to know, obviously. And who knows, it could be something bigger than just us here on this planet. It could mean that they could be trying to prepare for something outside of this planet, just in case. If there are extraterrestrials flying around in our solar systems that aren't as friendly, then maybe if we have this technology and we're working on it behind closed doors and not telling the world about it, and if something crazy, Battle Los Angeles type scenario occurs, then maybe we'll actually be more prepared than what people think. But yeah, I guess that's kind of all my main thoughts on what I wanted to talk about with Roswell. Like I said, growing up there was, just growing up, it's just kind of part of you. I feel like everyone who lives there or has lived there before kind of, for the most part, wants to accept a story and, tells everyone that, yeah, this is what happened, but I can't wait for the day for more credible intel to come out and kind of confirm what actually did happen there, because I think a lot of people know what happened there, and we're just sitting back and waiting for it to be released. But yeah, I guess that's it. Thanks for all you checking out episode 8 of That's No Moon Pod. I kind of want to dive deep into a little bit more of these type of topics in future episodes. Follow me on Instagram at Admire My Moonsalt. Posting comic book variant covers on there daily, at least once a day. So if you like comic books, go follow me on Instagram at Admire My Moonsalt. Hopefully start to be live streaming some video games here pretty soon on Twitch. So be on the lookout for that for sure. And yeah, y'all have a good rest of y'all's week. Y'all take care, and I'll catch y'all on the flip. Peace.